Good evening, and welcome to another episode of aPolitically Incorrect Guyana. My name is KIAN Jabour, and as usual, I am your host this evening. I wanted to first apologize. I wasn't here last week, but I know you guys had a very good show with two of my colleagues, Miss Asha Kissoon, who is our next MP to enter Parliament, and Mr. Mark France, who is the chairman of A New and United Guyana. So I hope you guys enjoyed that show while I was away, and I'm glad everybody got a chance to interact, and I got a chance to glimpse at the show a bit, and it seemed like a very informative show. So happy everyone was able to interact there. But we have a new show for you today. I unfortunately had a guest, Mr. Francis Bailey, but he got called away on an emergency, so he wasn't able to be here. So my apologies, but don't worry, as usual, I'm here to hold down the fort. Today is a very special day around the world for the Muslim community. So I'd like to say happy Eid to all our Muslim brothers and sisters out there. And I hope you're having a wonderful celebration, and I'm glad to see all the unity. I've had a chance to check out all the festivities that are going on in and around Guyana and Georgetown. So it really is fantastic to see everybody in unity, having a great celebration during this joyous time. So happy Eid to everyone. We have some interesting things happening around Georgetown now that we're getting back into political mode. I know everyone had a chance to see that all the parties were able to participate in nomination day that are going to be involved in the local government election. And the local government election is a very interesting aspect of our political atmosphere here in Guyana. It's used often at times to show, get a good indicator of what our national election is going to be like, but also it gives the candidates opportunities to really do a lot of groundwork and get into communities and kind of get the ball rolling for the larger general elections. In order to put these councillors in place, which is what you're voting for come local government elections, it's really and truly more to hone in on community issues. So it's important, and I encourage everyone to please go out there and vote. It's very important that you try to participate as much as you can, because these are the people that are going to be representing your community. So it's really important that you figure out a way to get involved in order to get what's best for you and your community members. It's going to be a very interesting election. I don't know if, I hope everybody has had a chance to have been following the media and got a chance to observe nomination day and all that was going on. Both the parties had very interesting showings. Unfortunately, APNU themselves were not as large a showing as we would have liked. Granted, I know some out there love that it wasn't that big, but I think they're contesting in less than half of the communities. So I don't think that's what you'd like to see from a main opposition. But I think the argument can be had there that APNU is and PNC are in rebuilding mode, and after the 2020 fiasco, the truth is, it left a lot to be desired. So you can see where, they may not have the momentum or the support that they used to. On the other hand, the PPP had quite a showing. And I guess the comical side, much to our humor here in the political atmosphere, was there were a few known members of the PNC APNU party that switched the floor and joined the PPP. I guess one of the most notable people being Miss Patricia Chase Green. She, I think, made probably a large name for herself during the parking meter fiasco. So, and we all know that is a deal that ended up very poorly. And we saw a large community, large aspect of society come together to put a stop to that and really take to the streets. I found it very funny because it was large in part so many members of the PPP and who are current part of the executive in the PPP and in the civic and so on that were very boisterous during that time, that that really were the ones, some of the people that stood up there and had the most to say on how corrupt they were and how corrupt the deal is. And these people should not and are not fit to lead Georgetown, much less the country. Only lo and behold now to embrace them with loving arms now that they've switched sides. Well, I guess, you know, people change, well, sometimes. And I think that's the motto that the PPP are putting forward, that these people are going to join them and do different than they did while they were with APNU. So I guess it's to wait and see. Georgetown has always been, Georgetown in particular, which is where the PPP has a very large active group contesting for Georgetown and the constituencies within Georgetown. It has always been known as the APNU PNC stronghold. So it's going to be very interesting. It'll be quite something for all of us to observe. I do want to make mention as well that there are quite a few independent candidates running. And I know they had had to submit their symbols quite some time ago, maybe three months ago, maybe a little bit less. And what you're going to see when you're going into voting is you're going to see quite a few symbols that you may not know. Elections are elections, whether local government or national. And I think it's important that when you go into that ballot box and you're casting your vote, it's very important for you to reflect and decide to yourself, one, if you are very happy with the way things are going, if you think your community is doing well, if you think your councillors are doing well from those areas, then by all means, I think it's important that you give them another chance. It really has a lot to do with your personal opinion and your personal feeling as to what has happened and is occurring. And if you're tending to lead to the other side and say, you feel like a lot more can be done, you need to take a long, hard look at what some of the issues are that are affecting you in your community. And I think a lot of the time we get caught up in the hype of the political parties and the big ones and who's advertising the most and who is selling the dream the most. And I think what you need to do is really take a few minutes to yourself and say, you know what? Let me put aside my emotional response to these parties and take a second to think about what is best for me. Has the PPP been running this constituency? Am I happy with them? Should I change them? Have they done enough? Do I think they can do more? Or should I give someone else a chance? And what I like is I'm always a big fan, as some of you may know, I'm always a big fan of the independent voice. In most political atmospheres around the world, there's obviously mainly two large parties. It's kind of how the political divide is and is naturally created. But, it's always important to understand that every now and again there needs to be a balance. And the same thing with your community. If you have, chances are you have had either the PNC or the PPP in your constituency and being the councillor of your constituency over pretty much the history of since independence. It's either been one or the other. And, if you are personally not feeling like enough has been done, there are independent candidates out there. And sometimes it's good to give other people a chance, see what they can do. And you never know, you may end up getting somebody who is a lot more energetic, somebody who is not, embedded in the system and will come in and just maintain the status quo. You may find somebody that is looking to do a lot more and is a lot more active and is trying to represent their community because they feel that none of the two large parties has done enough. So being an independent person myself, I think that everyone needs to be looked at and given a fair shot. If you feel that the current government and the PPP party can do most for your community, then absolutely, there's nothing wrong. But I think what's critical is that you participate. You make sure that you sit down there and reflect and think about what's best for you, not necessarily what's best for a party, but what's best for you, and participate. You need to make sure you hold your councillors and the people you voted for accountable. That's key. Whether independent, PNC or PPP, always make sure you hold them accountable. You put them there, and it's your job, and it's their job to serve you. Always remember that. A politician's job is there to serve the people. All right? And anybody in there, whether past, present, or future, make sure that you hold them accountable for what they've done or what they haven't done. So with local government happening, I mean, a lot of people have asked why some of these, smaller organizations have not run, and it's for a various amount of reasons. I can tell you, I know LJP, TNM, ANUG has not run, although we are in the current transition process in Parliament, and I think that is part of the reason, because that transition process has a lot to do behind the scenes with what legislation we're going to be putting forward, what kind of amendments to bills, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of work being done behind that people may not see. I guess the argument can be had that more needs to be publicized. So how else will people know? So I think that's one of the mechanisms that needs to take place. I think the other side of not participating in local government is financing, resources. Believe it or not, bear in mind, PPP and PNC are both funded by taxpayers. So the reality is the other smaller organizations will not have that kind of funding at their disposal. As you know, both the government, obviously the government having all the resources at their fingertips, and then the PNC or the main opposition being given, over $3 million a month that go towards any kind of campaigning or any kind of promotion for themselves. So in reality, those resources are much more plentiful for those two organizations. So that's a problem that the smaller organizations will have. And then I think there's a third reason, which I find very interesting, which is how local government is set up in Guyana. And a lot of people, and I can argue, I don't really have too much of an opinion on it on all sides, but the truth is local government elections and councillors and NDCs, RDCs, etc., they really are under the command and control of the central government. And it really all boils back down to funding. So if I were, or if someone in the PNC were to run for their constituency, or I were to run for somebody in my constituency, the truth of the matter is, when I get into that position, there is no fixed amount of money allocated to me in order to do the work that's required of the councillor of that area. So you really end up in a catch-22 position where the people voted for you to do something, and then your job is to make sure the grass is cut, make sure the place is clean, make sure the roads are fixed, make sure the gutters are clean, community work like that, make sure the parks are upkept, community areas are upkept. But at the end of the day, you're not actually given any money to do it. So, you kind of end up looking, unfortunately, like you're not doing a whole lot. And I think that's kind of part of the process that discourages a lot of people from participating in the local government election, unfortunately. With that said, to give a little bit more of political opinion, I'm as much as people may not think it, I'm not opposed to the PPP winning Georgetown, or Linden for that matter, or basically, to be very honest with you, whoever is in government should have as much control over the different neighborhoods and democratic constituencies, because at the end of the day, the last thing you want is for them to have anybody to blame. And that's a little bit more of my personal opinion. When it comes to Georgetown, and the condition it is just today, looking around with all the flooding and the blocked gutters and no water moving and the cocos giving problems and this and that, the truth is, maybe at the end of the day, giving them a little bit more power in this case to get those things fixed up and sorted out will be a true test to see how much they're doing. At the end of the day, we just need what's best for us, the people, the citizens of the country. And if that blame game continues to happen where the PPP say, oh, we can't fix it because it's APNU people in the constituencies, in the RDCs and the NDCs, so we're not being able to fix it, or every time we fix it, somebody else that's opposing us causes a problem, then you know what? Maybe here, take it. You know what? If you need control of Georgetown to make Georgetown better and clean it up and fix it up, then you know what? Power to you. I believe that there should be nothing standing in the way of you helping the people. So I think that might be potentially the solution. So in this case, I can argue that I am hopefully supporting the PPP when it comes to getting majority of the votes in Georgetown or majority of the councillor positions in Georgetown, because at the end of the day, the last thing I want is for them to come for the next 2 years and blame anybody else for why we are suffering continue to suffer in Georgetown. Why Georgetown is such a mess, why the roads are garbage, why there's garbage everywhere, why the drains are clogging, why the place is flooding. No more excuses. That's the last thing any of the people want. This whole blame game back and forth, I think we're all a little tired of it. So by all means, in Georgetown, they're the independent candidates and there's PPP. You know what? They're in central government. Maybe it's time to give them Georgetown to see if they can do a better job. That's my take on local government elections, at least. Other than that, some very interesting things have been occurring over the past couple of weeks. And I'm actually going to get to something a little bit closer. I'm going to ask my operator to bring up something just from today, in which an article came out in the Stabroek News this morning, where the permanent secretary of the Home Affairs Ministry, their phone was taken away by US authorities while in transit to China. So there you have the article. Home Affairs PS's permanent secretary's phone confiscated by US authorities. The mobile phone of the Ministry of Home Affairs permanent secretary, Miss May Toussaint Thomas, was recently taken by the authorities in the US while she was in transit to China. Two sources close to the government confirmed today. The sources say that the taking of the phone would have to be explained by Ms. Thomas and by the government. That's very, very interesting. And I think it's something that a lot of us need to take into consideration and maybe put on our thinking caps a little bit as to why this may be occurring. Very recently, the American government and the embassy here put out a warning that they were under threat, and their interests were under threat here in Guyana. And they had put out a warning in the media and to the public here. I know their security had been beefed up, and it was something that they were dealing with. Granted, that situation came and went. The public never got too much information on it. And now, last night or yesterday, which I find very interesting, that the permanent secretary was heading to China and was just in transit, not actually staying in the United States. And still, Homeland Security, the authorities there, would have confiscated her phone. Now, this leaves a lot to be questioned. And again, I can't sit here and pretend I know or wonder, but I can wonder. And as a citizen here, and as relevant and prominent as America is here in Guyana, you have to wonder why somebody as high up as Ms. Thomas, being the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs, which are in charge of all of our security here in Guyana, you really wonder for a second, why would her phone be of such interest to American authorities? Now, I have traveled the world. I've traveled extensively. I've been a very fortunate person. And never once has my phone been taken away for any reason in the airport and by any immigration or authorities of a country. You know, it leaves a lot. As a regular citizen, my phone has never been taken away. And it really leaves a lot to be wondered, because Ms. Thomas is not a regular citizen. She's a person that has a lot of classified information. She's a person in a very privileged position. And, you know, it really leaves a lot to wonder why the Americans would be so interested in Ms. Thomas's phone. So we're hoping, I saw, just as an update to that, I saw later on today that through diplomatic channels, the government of Guyana has requested, sent a letter to the American authorities questioning why Ms. Thomas's phone was confiscated. So I guess another interesting scenario that that leaves a lot to be wondered, but I guess it's a situation we'll follow a little bit more closely, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a little bit more information by next week as to why. Being in the political atmosphere, I know that there's a lot of rumors and gossip going around, none that I'm going to share tonight, but I can say that the more information I get, I'll be happy to share with everyone, because I believe, you know, rather than gossip, facts, I think, are what is critical in these types of situations, especially those of national security. So with that said, moving on to another topic, another interesting scenario took place recently in the news. This had a lot to do with what was recently happening in Georgetown, and it wasn't in the news per se. I think I saw two news sources speaking about the flooding, but it's something that obviously affects Guyanese all across the country on a regular basis. And funny enough, I have a picture here that I had that was circulating that I found, and it really left a lot for me to question. I'm going to ask the operator to pull up the picture, the second picture that I'd given. It was of a trench under construction today during the flooding. And this was a very interesting scenario, because when I saw this picture, so the first thing that came to my mind is, again, having studied engineering, that if they build the second retaining wall on the other side of this trench, and all this water, this amount of water has to pass through there, as you can currently tell, it's already at the top of the wall, almost at the top of the wall. And yet there's so much water on the outside of the wall. So when all that water is forced to channel through the middle there, you can only assume and understand that all that water will just end up overflowing, and we will be back to square one with the problem of flooding. Because that water and that retaining wall, the size of it there, because you assume they're going to do the same amount on the other side, you can only assume you're going to end up back to square one. And what's even more interesting about these types of projects, because these things have a lot of planning and a lot of data and research has to go into building and renovating these types of trenches and canals, because believe it or not, these were designed by the Dutch and the British based on how much water needed to be taken off, based on how much water needed to pass through there. So there's a reason that they are that wide. There's a reason that they are as deep as they are. And you see construction like this happening, and it is touted as progress, progress, progress. And it really leaves me to wonder, but in the end of this, will this make things better for the residents of that area? Will this be beneficial, or will this cause more damage? Will this cause more flooding? Will the backlog of water that is now forcing itself to go through a smaller channel not create more flooded areas? Because as we know, all of our canals and gutters are connected. So really and truly, I look at this things like this around town, and, you know, all the flooding we had today, and, you know, I really begin to question as to whether or not a lot of these projects have been thought through, and the planning has been properly laid out for them. So it's quite an interesting scenario that I think is going to take place. And sometimes we have to take, again, 2 minutes back and maybe leave our party party emotions out of it, and wonder that maybe all that glitters and shines isn't gold. Because a lot of these projects, and I know, I can tell you, even down to my street, Stone Avenue, you can tell that when the road was built, that there was no retaining walls at the side of it, and we already have underneath that street there erosion occurring, in which all the mud from underneath the road is washing away. And within the next couple months, you already know that the road is going to start breaking away. And then here we go again, another $1 billion, $500 million contract given out. And that'll be like, I think maybe the third time within 5 years that road is going to be fixed. And you're wondering really and truly again, if all this money being spent, billions and billions of taxpayers' dollars, really and truly are going towards the betterment of the country in the long run, or just really temporary patches. I mean, how many times have they fixed Lamaha Street now, or we see Carifesta again breaking away, or Thomas Lands, or any of these streets? I mean, it's one thing after the next. And I'm really hoping that at some point in time we start again to have a little bit more accountability. And I, as you know, as an independent, I always want to be somebody that can look at things as objectively as I can and unbiasedly as I can. But at the end of the day, this is our money being spent. This is taxpayers' dollars being spent. So accountability is key, and transparency. I think these are key pillars that are lacking here in society, which is why we're seeing billions and billions of dollars being spent. I did not give it to my operator, but again, I need to create a little board, because I'll just tell you how much it is. I saw in the news today, on the government media newsroom was able to post up how much money was made. Here we go. Guyana earned US $377 million from oil in the first quarter of 2023. $377 million US dollars in the last 3 months. Do your division, please. I don't think I need to do the math for everyone, but that is in and around 124 million dollars a month. 124 million US dollars per month. This is dramatic. This is me being quiet for dramatic effect. 120 million. Let me break out my trusty calculator. Let's just do it at 120 million for argument's sake. Divided by 30. That is 4 million US dollars per day. Guyana and the Guyanese people are earning 4 million US dollars per day. My pauses for dramatic effect are for you to contemplate whether you believe enough is being done, whether you believe salaries are enough, whether you believe cost of living is being controlled enough, whether you believe corruption is lowering, and obviously that's a large part because of the salaries that our public servants are being paid, whether you are happy with our hospitals and you as doctors out there are comfortable with the hospitals and what you're earning and how you have to work and the conditions that you're in. You as teachers, whether you're comfortable in the schools and you believe that enough money is being pumped in to you and your personal upgrades, and your students are being given everything that they possibly can be given to get the best opportunity to be educated. I always make fun of our current situation. Guyana currently is ranked in and around top 5 for migration. That's people leaving Guyana. And it's in and around 16.6 people to every 1,000 people every year leaves Guyana. So of every 1,000 Guyanese living here, 16.6 people leave, as the UN study showed. And that number is obviously rising very rapidly. I can tell you that just last month, or the month before that, they had 30 registered nurses quitting from the public hospital. And those nurses are, as we know, are all leaving the country. They're all headed to England or Canada where they're needed and where they're taken care of and given a better standard of living and able to earn an income to maintain their families. So we are earning $4 million US per day, yet we have people leaving this country more than coming, more than entering. We have many expats that are coming here to be paid high salaries and don't pay any taxes, working in the oil industry. But are the people of the country really benefiting? So and these are the questions you need to start asking. These are the questions that you need to hold your government accountable for. Are we getting enough as citizens? New buildings, new schools and new hospitals. Look at us, we're building brand new schools and hospitals. But we don't have enough teachers or doctors. So who exactly is going to be working if you're not paying these people properly, if you're not taking care of them? The people are our most important asset. Are the people being taken care of? Or are we still driving the same old garbage cars that somebody sold in Japan because it's too old now? And that's what we're getting. A new car in Guyana is 2013, 2016. Those are new cars here. But that's craziness. How exactly are we accepting that the country is making $4 million US a day and we have nothing to show? It's not acceptable anymore. How is it that let's just use something that I know it doesn't affect all Guyanese, but is something you really sit down and question. How is it that we are still paying over 100% duties, or maybe it's a little lower now, 80% duties on 4-door vehicles that construction companies need? Because everybody, any brother, any sister, anybody, any auntie are now contractors, because that's what the government just giving contracts out to contractors. And but yet they're not even given the opportunity to have the right equipment and tools. Old stuff they buy in, and again, how exactly are you expecting to get these people to produce the best when they're barely sufficing? But everybody's arguing opportunities, and what I can say, and I will always say it unbiasedly, I do believe there are more opportunities than when APNU is in power. That's a given. I agree. I think more money is moving than when APNU is in power. I can argue that it's probably the same level of corruption. I can argue that the average Guyanese is not benefiting much more. Like I said, the teachers, the doctors, the regular employees, supermarket employees, anybody working as secretaries, as accountants. Are they making more money? The argument is no. All the people in the government agencies, clerks, porters, are they making more money? And then with the cost of living having gone up even more, cost of living gone up by at least 30%, has salaries gone up by 30%? No, not even close. Not even close. So the little extra money that you're earning, that the government is claiming, oh, look how much more we're paying people. Well, that 7%, or let's say 10% more that you're claiming is a great, a great initiative, everybody's making more money. It doesn't matter if cost of living has gone up by 30%. They're still not surviving. So, a lot left to be desired, and again, all completely stemming from $4 million US a day being earned by the government in our natural resource fund account that comes in every single day, that comes in regularly, that can go towards the people, that can go towards salaries, that can go towards lowering taxes, even just temporarily, because we know oil is volatile. We're not saying do it depend absolutely permanently, but by all means. At this point in time, the people should be getting the ease. The people should be benefiting the most from the amount of money we're receiving. We're moving along here in Guyana. there's a lot occurring, and I know that Common Entrance is coming up. You know, speaking about education, because my daughter is writing Common Entrance here, and you know, it's something that you know I've been witnessing, and you know, moving on to another topic, it's something that I've been witnessing happening a lot within the recent generations. Is, you know, exams like Common Entrance, and I hope none of your kids are watching, but exams like Common Entrance, which at the end of the day really do not have a very large bearing on their future, you know, putting this kind of pressure on 11 and 12-year-olds really takes a mental toll on them. And I think a lot of people need to take that into consideration when, you know, pushing these kids during these exam times and so on. And I know a lot of the older generation will sit there and say, oh, well, we dealt with it. And, you know, I really sit down here and argue, did we really deal with it? You know, mental health is something that the world over, and studies have been done that show that are probably the most prominent factors in any issues we have in society. Mental health is a critical part of that. And one of the areas that I think needs to be looked at very closely in mental health is coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms meaning, you know, we hear mental health and we think schizophrenia or bipolar or crazy or, you know, mentally disturbed or, you know, just manic or erratic or walking the streets crazy. And that's not always what mental health is. You know, a lot of addiction stems from people not having good coping mechanisms. You know, a lot of suicide copes from people. A lot of suicide stems from people not being able to really understand their emotions and their feelings and what's going on in their head, and they don't have healthy ways to cope with it. And what's important is for everyone to understand that we all have issues. We all are going through stuff with our families. We all feel lonely sometimes. We all feel sad. We all feel angry. We all have things that trigger us. And what's extremely important in learning how to not let it affect others, or learning how to still be functioning parts of society, is learning how to cope with those emotions in a healthy manner. And it really starts at that very young age, that Common Entrance age, because it's the first real pressure that they go under. And they're ending up with so much on their head when it comes to expectations that they don't know. And even worse now, with the amount of information that they have access to, and they're being given, like the internet and YouTube and Google and TikTok and you know, social media. It's really taking a toll on them because they're trying to cope with who they are as people. And then at the same time, they have to meet this standard of expectation when it comes to this big exam. And it really, and you know, my heart goes out to them. But I think it's something that is so important for us to start learning and becoming maybe a larger aspect of our society, is teaching these young kids. And then obviously it'll help them later on in life, but teaching these young kids how to cope with their emotions. When you're feeling angry, when you're feeling sad, frustrated, when you have anxiety, how do you in a healthy manner cope with this? Do you know, some people have hobbies, some people like to cook, some people, you know, go for a run, some people play a sport, some people read a book, some people take a nap, some people, you know, drink some tea and, you know, maybe go out with some friends or take a drink. You know, everybody has different ways, and we've learned to try and cope with distractions. But what we're not doing is we're not assessing it in our own minds and dealing with it. We're just kind of running from it. How do if I have a problem, if I'm feeling sad, okay, first of all, why am I feeling sad? You know, am I feeling more sad than I should? And you take a personal assessment, and then you figure out, okay, has something triggered me? And then you say, okay, well, let me take a step back. How do I now figure out to either calm down or maybe rationally and logically assess the situation? Does it require me to be this angry or overreact? And then if you still find yourself kind of reacting poorly and maybe not really creating a scenario of comfort for those around us, bear in mind there are times in life that you may need medication, and people say, oh, well, I'm not crazy, I don't need medication, but it's not always for that. Some people have anxiety, some people get very, panicky and don't sleep well, and those are all kinds of things that trigger different emotional reactions. So I think, hopefully I'm having a conversation, and a few of you, even one of you out there, are understanding what I'm trying to say. And, seeking out professional help is never something that can hurt. There are doctors, believe it or not, that are trained with this. You're not alone in it. Many of us are dealing with it all the time, and it's something we've had to deal with our whole lives. And I really and truly hope that, we understand how this affects society, even down to little things like road rage. Why are all of us so angry on the road? Why are all of us so, so quick to, maybe abuse our friend or be defensive? And you really have to wonder to yourself, well, am I coping with my emotions correctly? So, I'm going to cut this show a little short today, and on that note, because I think it's a lot for us to take in and think about. And, it is Eid, and I know a lot of people are out celebrating, and I hope they're having a wonderful time with their families. But maybe take a few minutes to, ask them how they're really doing, how they're truly doing. If there's anything you can help with, if there's anything you could even just be a soundboard for. A lot of people just need someone to listen to them sometimes. And, maybe there's a lot of very good doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists out there that, maybe some professional help. Maybe I've been feeling very anxious or angry, and I find it's been affecting my children or, my relationships. And maybe, go and have a chat with them and see what and how they can help. And look after your children, make sure they're good. And again, good luck to all the kids with that are doing their deep in their studies. They only have maybe 2 more weeks, because I think it's the 2nd and 3rd of May. So I know they have a lot happening at the moment, and I wish them luck. And remember, at the end of this, life will still go on. You did your best. And I know some of the smartest people I know came out of North Georgetown, came out of Christchurch, we came out of Dolphin, as we talked back in our day. You don't need to be the top school to prove that, you're going to be a strong, valued person in society. Please never, ever feel that pressure. It all is doing what you can do best, and always understanding that you're going to find your path as well. A lot of these standardized tests, the truth is, don't really reflect what your strong suits are. You may be strong at music. You may be strong at poetry. You may be a musical instrument. You may be a musician. You may be there's so many things that, you may be an athlete that this type of work may not be your strong suit. So don't worry, you'll find your path. And, again, as long as you just stay confident and look at things in a positive outlook, it'll all be good. And those around you will benefit, and you will benefit, and you'll have a good, strong, happy life. So on that note, everyone, again, happy Eid, and thank you for joining me here on another episode of Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. My name is KIAN JABOUR. I will be back here next Friday. I have a guest in mind because there's some interesting things happening next week. So hopefully we're going to get a lot of information on all that we've spoken about on this show, and I can keep you guys in the loop, and you guys can join me here, and I'll have my phone so you guys can be much more interactive. Please, the number is there. That is such an interesting public service announcement. I know I'm about to leave, but that number up there, I know many of you call me. I don't even want to say some, because I get so many missed calls now. You guys, please, if you want, the best way to reach me, because I don't always have the phone in my hand, is send a WhatsApp message. Type a message to me, and just, give me a quick brief, and I promise you I will get back to you as soon as I get a chance. All right, so the number is up there. Feel free to reach out anytime you want. Again, happy Eid, everyone, and thank you for watching another episode. My name is KIAN JABOUR. Have a wonderful weekend and week next week. Take care.